Hello guys! Today I'm going to be doing the third episode for my building process series, and I'm going to be finished doing the exterior of this house. And this style of exterior, I'm going to call it natural exterior because it looks like you would find it in a forest. There's rocks, there's bushes, there's trees. If this was like a modern house or something, you would not want to have rocks and bushes and trees. Well, you would want to have trees, but you might want them to look more organized or like they were planted, and you probably wouldn't want rocks and bushes all over unless if they're in an organized fashion. And there is no exterior on this house or this house, but we're just going to be focusing on this house today. So like and subscribe, but other than that, let's get right into it. Steps you do next are really your choice, but I'm going to be doing the trees because I feel that it's the biggest thing, and if you have something else where your trees are going to go, it's going to be really hard to build them. And I always like to clear out all the natural trees in the area. And of course, as you may know, it's very possible to use saplings for this step, but I really don't recommend it because, first of all, they're relatively small. And in real life, if you look at a pine tree or even an oak tree, like, they're going to be as tall as or taller than the houses, especially these pine trees. And you could even build them taller than the ones I've built here. There are a few smaller ones I've built, but those I use fence posts for because the trunks aren't that thick in real life. So I've got an area prepared with the trees for the trees. And before I start actually building them, I'm going to figure out where I'm going to build each of them. And when I'm just doing it freehand, when I'm not on camera, I just build trees because I just will destroy them if I don't like them. But I don't want to take too much time, and I don't want to have to waste my filming time making and destroying trees. So what I think I want to do is I want to try to frame the house, but still make it look like there's a decent amount of trees. So I think I want to do several smaller trees over here. So 3 of those. I want to do some bigger trees and some smaller trees in the backyard. I think 3 of these might be too many, so I'm going to take away this one and scoot this one out a little bit. And I don't want to block the view from the house too much. But I also want it to look very natural, like it's almost a forest. I'm going to have a few more of the small ones, and I'm going to bring it up the hill. Even though it's not super close to the house, I think that's what I'd like to do. And I'd say that the little trees and the larger trees are 2 whole different types of trees to build. For these little ones, you can choose exactly how tall they are, but I wouldn't recommend going too tall or it'll kind of just look like a stick with leaves on it. So I think this is going to be my height. But one leaf block on top because you don't want the stick poking out. And make sure that all sides that you don't want to be part of the trunk are covered. You can make there be 1 block space, but I kind of want it to almost look, I think, tall. I might change that a little later. And then once you've got your basic shape, I am going to add these. But once you've got your basic shape, you're kind of going to mess it up. And there's a few different ways to do that. You could actually, if you wanted, you could keep it like this. But it might kind of look funny to have an exactly perfect tree, especially when it's not in like a modern or suburban place where you would be trimming your trees very often. Because, as you may know, this is a very medieval, oldish style. So what I like to do is I kind of just like to mess it up. Break a few blocks, add a few blocks, and then do that to all of the sides of the tree, not just one. And make sure you're not breaking only blocks in a certain region, and make sure nothing looks really square either. So, like, I think that looks okay. I'm going to bring the top of this up one more and bring that. And I think that is a pretty good little tree. For the big trees, you're going to want to make them really big. And I'm going to have to time-lapse part of this big tree because it's going to take quite a while. But I'm making this one pretty tall. It's not exactly the tallest one, but it's relatively tall. And what you want to do is you want to bring that up like one or two. And most of these I put only one leaf on top. And then you want to choose how far out you want to go. So I'm doing 4 of each block. Like there's 4 that go 2 blocks out. And then there's going to be 4 that go 3, 4 that go 4. And you can always change this later. If it looks like it's too thick, then you can change it. And then I actually think I'm going to bring this down a few so that it's not too much. And then I'm going to time-lapse the rest of this, and it's all going to be circles after the time-lapse. So I have finished building most of the tree, or at least the skeleton of it. It's sort of like building a house with no detail, it's just the walls and the roof, basically. Before there's detail, before there's windows, before there's doors. But that's just a comparison. So the next step for the trees, if you're doing trees last or something, then this comes after the trees. Whenever you do trees, this comes after the trees. And that is to make the trees look more natural. And you want to do it in the same way you did the little ones, except you want to be a little more rough with this one because it's pretty big. So what I sometimes do is I just kind of spam a little bit. I spam, and then I do the same with these. Oops. And you kind of get, and then afterwards, if there's any spots that look like they need more, then you can fix those up too. And then you do the same to all 4 sides. And now we've got a nice and pretty decent sized and natural looking tree. And I'm going to quickly finish the rest of these trees off camera. I might take away a few of them because there's quite a lot and I don't feel like making that many. But yeah. And it's fine to get rid of some that you plan to make, especially because a lot of times they end up bigger than you expected. Like I was going to build another tree right here and that wouldn't really fit without the leaves colliding quite a bit. But yeah, I'm going to finish these off camera. I just finished the trees, and I forget which one we did on camera, but we've got 2 smaller big ones and 2 large-ish big ones. I think this was the one we did on camera. And then we've got a really tiny one, a small one, and I think, no, okay, there was not another small one. But either way, the next step is your choice. You can do bushes or rocks, or you could do the trees if you decided to do something else first. The only step that has to be in a certain thing is the grass, which always needs to be last, because otherwise it'll be impossible to do your trees, rocks, and bushes. But I'm going to be doing the rocks next. And the rocks involves probably the most different variety of blocks. So you can choose, there's a lot of different block choices that you can use for rocks. I usually go with stone, cobblestone, and mossy cobblestone, but others you could use are andesite, polished andesite, stone bricks, mossy stone bricks, stone slabs, and even like black stone or diorite or granite if you wanted to. And there are more of those in here. You could even add like iron or coal to your rocks to make them look like they have different colors in them. And that might be a really cool way to detail things. But for the rocks, it's one of those things that's really simple yet relatively complicated. When I say complicated, I just mean like it can get really not great if you don't do it well. And I'll often build it and then change it up. Like, I couldn't see really any stone, and I think there should be a slab there. But that's a relatively decent rock. And you can put slabs all over. The slabs in this yard are a little bit spammed because there's so many of them, but it's your choice how many you want to put. I tend to put a lot because I want it to look like this is a really old house and there were no lawnmowers yet, and no one's going to make an effort to mow a lawn with a scissors or a knife or something. So, yeah. So I'm probably going to finish the rest of this off camera. So, see you soon. I'm basically done with the rocks, and I decided not to go with too many big rocks. I've only got 3 or 4, while around this house I've got quite a few. And I also wanted to mention, before I go on to bushes, a strategy that you can also use for bushes, but it's more for rocks, and I call it clustering, but it doesn't really have a name. I recommend having a little area, like for me it's over here, where there is just a lot of rocks or a lot of bushes, and then have the rest of them more scarcely spread out around the yard. And I think it makes it look more realistic. Like, there's certain spots where there was more rocks naturally, and some spots where there were less rocks naturally, like over here there were only a few, and there were like barely any on the side of the house, at least under the trees. But after the rocks, the next step is the second to last step in the order that I do it, but could be somewhere else depending on what your choice is, and it's bushes. And you can definitely choose what type of leaves you're doing. I like doing spruce leaves because then it matches the trees. But oak, birch, jungle all look fine. Acacia and dark oak are extremely similar to oak, so I wouldn't actually recommend using those. And then I also recommend grabbing jack-o'-lanterns because you can use them as lighting underneath the bushes so that at night your area will look more bright. And I actually have this world on always day because this is a world just for building, and I don't really want to have to deal with mobs, and actually I think it's on peaceful too, but I don't really want to have to deal with darkness because it's hard to build in the dark. And I don't know if you noticed what I did, but I left the block right above the jack-o'-lantern open so that the light still passes through. Because if it's solid blocks all around the jack-o'-lantern, the light can't get through. And speaking of the lighting, all of these tips that I'm saying or telling you how to do can be used in any game mode. Obviously not adventure or spectator mode if you're on Java, because you can't build in those, but survival, creative, as long as you have the resources, if you're in survival, it'll work just as good in survival. But yeah, so bushes, and more bushes. Bushes is another, it's kind of like the rocks. You can choose how many you want to have. I kind of want this house to have a decent amount of bushes, but I think it's not going to be too many because that would just be weird. And also you can choose, do you want all your bushes to be on the outside of the house? Do you want all of them to be around the yard, or do you want to kind of mix it up and have some that are sitting around the yard and some that are by the edge of the house? I'm kind of going with both, but mostly by the windows, I think. So just adding, I think, 1 or 2 more, and then we'll get to the final step, which is basically grass. So I think I'm going to be done with the bushes. If I end up making a path up to the door, I might end up getting rid of this one because it would be very much in the way of that. But for now, I think it's fine. And for the grass, you can either get bone meal or you can get these different things and use them in a more specific manner. I'm mostly going to be using bone meal, but I want to say I really don't want flowers. So when I'm having problems like that where there are flowers, I'm going to replace it with fern or grass, not tall fern or double tall grass. And the reason for that is because the fern and double tall grass is going to be a whole different part of the grass section. And of course, I'm mostly, when there's flowers, just going to be destroying them, but if there's a lot of flowers in an area and not as much grass, I might switch it out for double tall grass or something. And I do break plenty of blocks because this is Pocket Edition, so it's sometimes hard to get into the right hitboxes of stuff. Oh, that's a lot of flowers. So I'm just going to do the rest of this off camera and come back in a minute when the whole yard is with grass and ferns. I'm back after finishing filling the yard with grass, and it looks kind of odd on the outsides because it's not grass everywhere, only in the yard. But hopefully that will look better when I add more houses and more stuff. But anyway, the next step is a very fast step, but it's basically just to spam even more bone meal everywhere. And what you'll get happening is when it hits the tall grass and double tall grass and stuff, it'll grow taller, which is exactly what we want, because it makes it look even more natural and unwell kept. I don't know. Is that a word? Well, I'm just going to... I'm not even going to do this off camera because it literally takes like 2 minutes. And I'm pretty sure I'm done. And now that yard looks a lot more natural. And there are other things. There are definitely other things that you could do to the yard. You could do what I did in the back of this yard and make like a logging station. It works especially well with the medieval style. You could build a garden like this subscriber garden, speaking of which someone unsubscribed, so I have to get rid of that flower. You could Actually, I did both types of leaves for this. You could do anything, basically. You could build oak trees instead, which I might do in the future, but for now I'm sticking with spruce because I need to get better at building oak trees before I'm going to do a tutorial on it, or your trees are going to look like mine. Spiders on a stick with hair, which is not exactly what you want your oak trees to look like. But other than that, like, subscribe, leave a comment about what you like specifically in the comments. Tell me, do you like the shorter videos like my first few, or do you like the slightly longer videos like this one? And other than that, have a great day. And also, thank you for making it to the end of the video. Bye!